On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected.
Thank you to all our amazing channel members for your generous support.
Tupac Shakur, one of the most influential voices in hip-hop, died violently on September 13, 1996, at just 25 years old. He was shot multiple times in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas after attending a Mike Tyson boxing match. Despite surviving for several days in the hospital, Tupac ultimately succumbed to his injuries. His death, the result of gun violence, reflected both the turbulent world of 1990s rap culture and the broader American struggles with urban violence, systemic inequality, and the commercialization of conflict in popular music. Tupac's murder was emblematic of the East Coast-West Coast rivalry that dominated the rap scene of the time, a feud inflamed by the media and record labels alike. His death underscored the tragic reality that art imitating life could sometimes become indistinguishable from the violence it depicted. In the years following his passing, questions about who was responsible for the shooting and whether it was linked to gang rivalries or industry politics remained unresolved, adding to the mystique surrounding him. The immediate consequences of his death were seismic. Fans worldwide mourned, and vigils sprang up across cities in the United States. His music sales surged, and posthumous releases like The Don Killuminati, The 7-Day Theory cemented his reputation as not just a rapper, but a cultural prophet. Tupac's lyrics, often blending themes of systemic oppression, racial injustice, and personal struggle, resonated even more deeply after his murder. His death amplified his legend, transforming him into a martyr-like figure whose life and art symbolized both the potential and peril of a generation. Tupac's passing also shifted the trajectory of hip-hop. It brought heightened attention to the dangers of rap's rivalries, contributing to a gradual cultural shift toward reconciling conflicts within the genre. At the same time, his death left a void, reminding audiences how much had been lost when an artist of such profound talent and vision was silenced prematurely. In reflecting on Tupac's death, we see humanity's complex relationship with mortality, power, and memory. Death froze him in youth, eternally rebellious and uncompromising. We immortalize him through music, murals, documentaries, and scholarship, ensuring that his voice continues to challenge and inspire new generations. His story reveals how mortality, when paired with artistry and authenticity, can magnify a legacy, turning an individual into a symbol of cultural resilience and enduring truth. Frank Vincent, a distinguished character actor, passed away on September 13, 2017, at the age of 80 following complications from heart surgery. His death was natural in the sense that it reflected the vulnerabilities of aging, rather than the violent ends often portrayed in his roles. Unlike the mob bosses and tough-talking gangsters he embodied on screen, Vincent's real-life passing was quiet and medical, a reminder that mortality claims even the most seemingly indestructible icons of popular culture. Vincent's career was deeply entwined with the rise of mob-centered entertainment in late 20th century America. Through films like Raging Bull, 1980, Goodfellas, 1990, and Casino, 1995, as well as his memorable role as Phil Leotardo in The Sopranos, he came to personify the archetype of the Italian-American gangster. His death did not shake governments or alter global events, but within the world of entertainment, it marked the end of an era. For many fans, his passing symbolized the fading of a generation of actors who brought grit and authenticity to stories of crime, loyalty, and betrayal. narratives that resonated with audiences during a period fascinated by the dark underbelly of the American dream. The immediate consequence of his death was a wave of tributes from colleagues and admirers, reflecting his reputation as both a consummate professional and a cultural fixture. For actors and filmmakers, Vincent's loss underscored the closing of a chapter in cinematic history that prized raw, streetwise performances. For audiences, it reinforced the nostalgia and reverence for the mafia genre, which had mirrored broader societal anxieties about power, corruption, and identity. In death, Vincent's legend grew. Like many character actors whose faces become more iconic than their names, his image, cold-eyed, sharp-suited, and commanding, remains etched into popular memory. His roles continue to circulate in memes, film retrospectives, and academic discussions of American cinema. This commemoration highlights humanity's tendency to immortalize figures not simply for who they were, but for the values, fears, and fascinations they embodied on screen. Ultimately, Vincent's death reminds us that memory and legacy often transcend the circumstances of mortality. Through art, film, and collective cultural remembrance, he lives on as a symbol of the enduring power of storytelling. We immortalize such figures because they help us grapple with our own anxieties about mortality, power, and identity, allowing their presence to echo long after their final curtain call. Eddie Money, the American rock singer and songwriter known for hits like 2 Tickets to Paradise and Take Me Home Tonight, died on September 13, 2019, at the age of 70. His death was the result of complications from stage 4 esophageal cancer, a natural, though tragic consequence of illness. Unlike the sudden, violent departures of many rock stars of earlier decades, Money's passing reflected the realities of aging musicians facing health battles later in life. It underscored a shift in rock culture. The first wave of performers who had once embodied youthful rebellion were now grappling with mortality in the public eye. Money's illness and death were especially poignant because he had been open with fans about his diagnosis, even documenting his struggles on the reality series Real Money. This transparency mirrored broader cultural values of the 21st century, in which celebrities increasingly share their vulnerabilities to foster connection with audiences. In an era where discussions of health and mortality are less hidden, Money's candor humanized him and allowed fans to experience his journey with empathy. The immediate consequences of his death included an outpouring of tributes from fellow musicians and fans. For many, his passing was a reminder of the late 1970s and 1980s rock era, a time when his anthems provided both escapism and optimism. Unlike artists whose deaths halted groundbreaking careers, Money had already enjoyed decades of success, yet his passing amplified appreciation for his catalog. Streaming numbers surged, his songs returned to radio rotations, and he was remembered as a performer who bridged blue-collar sincerity with rock stardom. Money's legacy has been shaped not by mythologizing a tragic fall, but by celebrating his resilience, humor, and ability to craft enduring songs. His music remains a soundtrack to American cultural memory, often invoked in films, commercials, and nostalgic playlists. In this sense, his death reinforced the idea that art can outlast the body, ensuring that performers continue to inspire long after they are gone. Reflecting on his passing reveals how humanity uses memory and commemoration to confront mortality. We immortalize figures like Eddie Money not simply because of fame, but because their art captures universal emotions, dreams, longings, and joy. His death highlights a truth about cultural icons. Even as time claims them, the echoes of their voices remain, reminding us that mortality need not silence meaning, and memory ensures their place in history's chorus. Jean-Luc Godard, the pioneering French-Swiss filmmaker and central figure of the French New Wave, died on September 13, 2022, at the age of 91. His death was due to natural causes, marking the end of a life that had profoundly reshaped cinema and cultural thought in the 20th century. Godard's passing reflected not only the mortality of a towering artistic figure but also the broader trajectory of modernist experimentation in art, where innovation and defiance of convention defined an era. Godard's career was emblematic of post-war Europe, a time when filmmakers sought to break free from rigid studio systems and explore new ways of storytelling. With groundbreaking films such as Breathless, 1960, and Pierrot le Fou, 1965, he challenged traditional narrative structures, experimented with jump cuts, and blurred the line between political commentary and cinematic expression. His death signified the fading of a generation of artists who used cinema not just to entertain, but to interrogate society, politics, and identity in revolutionary ways. The immediate consequences of Godard's death were felt across the global film community. Tributes poured in from directors, critics, and cinephiles, celebrating his fearless creativity and his role in transforming film into a medium of philosophical inquiry. Retrospectives of his work were organized at film festivals, and discussions about his influence on contemporary cinema proliferated online and in print, reinforcing his status as a legendary innovator. Godard's passing amplified his legend by highlighting the radical and enduring nature of his contributions. His films remain essential studies for understanding both the evolution of cinema and the cultural currents of his time. Godard's death also invites reflection on humanity's relationship with mortality and memory. While his physical presence has ended, his ideas continue to shape artistic expression, reminding us that intellectual and creative legacies can transcend death. Cinema becomes a vessel for memory, allowing audiences to engage with Godard's revolutionary vision long after his passing. Through screenings, essays, and scholarly critique, he is immortalized not only as a filmmaker, but as a cultural thinker whose work challenges, provokes, and inspires. Ultimately, Jean-Luc Godard's life and death demonstrate how mortality is intertwined with the enduring power of art. While human life is finite, the ideas and creative energy we leave behind allow us to persist in collective memory, offering future generations the tools to rethink and reimagine the world. Ken Starr, the American lawyer, judge, and former Solicitor General, died on September 13, 2022 at the age of 76. His passing followed a period of declining health, reportedly due to natural causes. Starr's death closed the chapter on a life deeply intertwined with one of the most tumultuous political eras in modern American history, reflecting both the power and the controversies associated with the legal and political institutions of his time. Starr gained national prominence as the independent counsel who investigated President Bill Clinton in the 1990s, a period marked by intense partisan division and media scrutiny. His work led to the Starr Report, which detailed allegations of misconduct and ultimately contributed to Clinton's impeachment by the House of Representatives in 1998. Starr's death, therefore, symbolized the end of a career that had navigated the intersection of law, politics, and public perception during an era when media amplification could transform legal proceedings into cultural flashpoints. The immediate consequences of his passing were primarily reflective, prompting a reconsideration of his legacy. Colleagues, critics, and the public revisited both his achievements and controversies. While some praised his dedication to legal process and scholarship, others recalled the polarizing nature of his work, which fueled political conflict and public debate. His death amplified the ongoing discussion about the role of legal authorities in shaping political accountability, and underscored how individual actors can influence national discourse in lasting ways. Star's passing invites reflection on the human dimension of power, mortality, and memory. While his work placed him at the center of political history, his death reminds us that even figures of immense influence are ultimately subject to the same vulnerabilities as anyone else. We immortalize individuals like Star, not only through records of their professional achievements, but also through the cultural and political debates they inspire. His legacy is preserved in legal texts, media archives, and the ongoing scholarly examination of presidential oversight and accountability. Ultimately, Ken Starr's life and death illustrate how society negotiates the tension between human mortality and institutional power. Through documentation, public discourse, and historical study, his contributions and controversies endure, offering insight into the complex ways in which individuals shape and are remembered by the unfolding story of their era. George Wallace, the four-time governor of Alabama and a polarizing figure in American politics, died on September 13, 1998, at the age of 79. His death was due to complications related to Parkinson's disease, a natural but debilitating condition that mirrored the physical vulnerabilities of aging public figures. Wallace's passing marked the end of a life that had both reflected and shaped the struggles of the American South during the Civil Rights era, illustrating how mortality intersects with the legacies of power, ideology, and public memory. Wallace first gained national notoriety in the 1960s for his staunch pro-segregation stance, famously declaring, "Segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever," during his 1963 inaugural address. His career was a product of, and reaction to, the deeply entrenched racial and political divides of his time. Despite an assassination attempt in 1972 that left him paralyzed from the waist down, Wallace returned to politics, eventually moderating some of his earlier positions and seeking reconciliation with civil rights leaders. His death underscored the temporal arc of political life. Even the most polarizing figures are ultimately subject to the same human limitations as anyone else. The immediate consequences of Wallace's death were a mixture of reflection and reevaluation. For many, his passing prompted a reassessment of his legacy, from a symbol of resistance to civil rights to a cautionary tale of political extremism and later of personal transformation. Public discourse highlighted both the harm caused by his early policies and the complexities of his later efforts at reconciliation. Wallace's death amplified the historical memory of his life, ensuring that debates over race, politics, and redemption remained part of the cultural conversation. Wallace's story illustrates how society negotiates mortality, power, and memory. His legacy has been immortalized through history books, documentaries, and scholarly analyses that examine the contradictions of his life. Through these mediums, both his failings and his attempts at atonement continue to educate and provoke discussion. Moses Malone, one of basketball's most dominant and influential figures, died on September 13, 2015, at the age of 60 from heart disease. His passing, while natural, was untimely, reflecting the health vulnerabilities that professional athletes can face after careers defined by physical intensity. Malone's death marked the loss of a towering sports icon whose career spanned the American Basketball Association, ABA, and the National Basketball Association, NBA, highlighting both the triumphs and physical tolls of professional sports in the late 20th century. Malone's career was emblematic of the evolving era of professional basketball, where athleticism, dedication, and media visibility converged to create modern sports stardom. A three-time NBA Most Valuable Player and a 12-time All-Star, he was renowned for his rebounding, scoring ability, and relentless work ethic. His passing underscored the challenges faced by players whose lives were spent pushing physical limits for fame and achievement, reflecting broader societal admiration for dedication and performance, as well as the hidden costs of athletic excellence. The immediate consequences of Malone's death were felt deeply across the basketball community. Tributes poured in from teammates, coaches, and fans, celebrating not only his on-court accomplishments but also his humility and mentorship off the court. His passing revived discussion of his legacy, including his crucial role in leading the Philadelphia 76ers to the 1983 NBA championship and his influence on subsequent generations of players who modeled their game after his style. Malone's death amplified his legend, transforming him from a celebrated athlete into a symbol of perseverance, dedication, and the human side of professional sports. Malone's life and death illuminate how society memorializes figures who combine talent with cultural significance. He is immortalized through statues, Hall of Fame inductions, documentaries, and countless highlight reels that continue to inspire basketball fans and players alike. His passing reminds us that while mortality is inevitable, the impact of human endeavor, especially when it resonates broadly through culture and achievement, endures. Ultimately, Moses Malone's death demonstrates humanity's desire to preserve the legacies of those who excel in their craft. Through commemoration, storytelling, and celebration, figures like Malone continue to shape cultural memory, teaching lessons about dedication, resilience, and the enduring power of excellence beyond life itself.